Hello and welcome back to XVDA Bibles. My name is Ethan. So today we're going to be continuing our series on how to rebind a Bible from start to finish. So today we're going to be doing the foldovers and the corners. So this is definitely a part of the rebinding process that takes a lot of skill and a lot of practice, and it's something that I don't know if you ever really perfect it. You just get better and better as you go. I've done some really good foldovers and really good corners in my rebinding experience, but I never I'm not able to maintain like the perfection over 10 Bibles, that type of thing. It's some Bibles just come together better than others, but we'll see what we can do here with this one. So a couple things to get out of the way first. When I went to size this cover, if you remember back in one of the earlier parts, I spaced extra leather here. So the first thing we're going to have to do is cut down this little space here a little bit, and that'll give us a really nice clean fold over when we go to do that process. So we're going to go ahead and do that here. So what I do is I normally like doing a 5/16 fold over, and I have a little measuring square here that I've made up to help this process go a lot quicker. So you can see there 5/16. That's what we'll be using. But obviously you can use a ruler, and I often just do use a ruler. But sometimes if I'm doing a bunch of Bibles at once, this little square is really handy for getting that done pretty quick. So the idea is that we want to measure 5/16 of a space right here, mark, and then cut it. And then we're going to have to re-radius our corners as well. I'm actually going to get a more precise pen. So I left about 1/16 of extra here, which will be the only thing that I end up cutting off. So remember here this little bit that I messed this up a little bit during skiving. That will be at least the vast majority of that will be cut off. So my rule of thumb with little skiving errors like that is that if anything shows through to the front of the cover, I need to start over. If I cut through the leather some on the fold over portion, I will repair that little bit and just continue on with my cover. But my skiving is going to get, I think, a lot more precise soon, because I've just started. I got a skiving jig, a skiving Dremel jig recently, and I'll do a video on it at some point, how it works, because I've only done a couple Bibles with it at this point, but you essentially mount a Dremel tool like a Dremel rotary tool into a jig, and it enables you to skive very precisely. So the process of foldovers are something that even at my point are really annoying, because especially if your liner and your cover leather are different colors, like if you have a dark brown. If you have a dark brown cover and a darker brown liner, and a little bit of wiggle in your fold over is going to be really obvious. So I have invested in a jig that will hopefully make my foldovers and my skiving a lot more consistent. And I finished my first Bible that uses that jig here recently, and I'm really happy with the type of consistency I'm able to get. Because any amount of thickness difference in your skiving is going to, that difference is going to be, the obviousness of that difference is going to be maximized when you go to do your foldovers, because one part of your leather will fold over more than your. So if you have one little bit of leather that's thicker, that is not going to be as flexible, and you're not going to fold that bit over. You're not going to be able to fold that bit over your liner as effectively as a thinner piece of leather. So really consistent foldovers. The key to really consistent foldovers really is just really consistent skiving. And that Dremel jig is going to be how I move forward as a rebinder. So I actually bought this jig. I'll put in a picture of what it looks like, because it might be kind of hard to picture, but I actually bought this jig from another rebinder, which is really cool. So you can see here, this little bit that I messed up while skiving, that little bit right there is all that you're gonna see. So yeah, I actually bought this jig from another rebinder, and we were originally planning on just like bartering for it. I had a panel of Badalassi Carlo cowhide that I didn't have plans for, and I offered to just trade it with him. I ended up just paying for it because he didn't actually have plans for the leather, so I just ended up paying him a little bit of money for it, and it's been great so far. So the next thing we're going to do here is re-radius our corners. Because we cut a little bit off, our radius is going to be a little bit messed up, so we're going to have to do that again. And we'll get our radiuses out here. And it's always, with your radiuses, it's good to double check. See, I keep these paired up on a little piece of ribbon here, so I know that this cover radius works well with this liner radius. So these are always together, so I don't get confused. And I'm pretty sure these are the two that I used for this cover, but it was so long ago, I don't exactly remember. But the way to tell is to just hold this up to my liner to see if it matches, and it does. So I know now that this is going to be what I use here. So there we go. That little mark will go away. So if your foldover, again, I covered this in a previous video, but if your foldover is supposed to be 5/16, you want 5/16 of an inch all the way around your radius. So that's a really quick and easy way to figure out what your radius should be. And I really like these Olfa cutters because they lock really solidly in place. The blades are cheap. This is an 18 mil. This one uses the 18 millimeter blades, and this is just a great cutter. It's so cheap too. I think it's like $15. I stopped using those like single replaceable X-Acto blades a while back. Just because I like being able to like extend this out if I'm trying to go around my radius, but I normally keep it just a couple, a medium length here. So that looks good. That looks good. Continue on here. And there's really no reason, there's no way that I can avoid getting my gray-haired head out of the way. So I'm only 33 and I started graying really early. In high school, I got a little gray section in the front of my hair, and it just continued on. I'm probably like 50% gray at 33. My wife is only a couple years younger than me, but she looks a lot younger than me because she doesn't have any gray hair, and she gets asked all the time, "How old is your husband?" Because of my gray hair, I to some people I might look 10 years older than her, but I'm actually not. So anyway, we are ready to start doing our foldovers. So for foldovers, very recently, I have changed the type of glue that I use for my foldovers. For the majority of my Bible construction, I was using some Aleene's tacky glue, and I think I'm going to start using Lineco on the majority of my Bibles. I think I'm going to go back to Lineco. Several months ago, earlier in 2025, I had some issues with Lineco glue cracking and not being very flexible. And I think it might have been because I was using too much glue, and the thickness of the glue was just causing the glue to not be flexible. So I used Lineco glue on the Tyndale House Greek New Testament that I did recently, and it's great. Super flexible, no cracking, weird cracking issues. So I'm planning on starting to go back to Lineco PVA. But for foldovers, I am a big believer in this glue here. So someone in the Bible rebinding group recommended this stuff, Phoebing's leather cement. And it is a PVA glue, so it's water-based, but the hold, as in like the strength of the bond, is so much stronger than Lineco glue. So when you go to glue your cover, obviously you're going to have your foldover, but your foldover is also going to be bent around the text block. And this glue, because of its higher hold, because of its stronger hold, it doesn't tend to pull up from the liner as much. So I've used this on a couple Bibles, and I love it. So that's what I would recommend. I know it's kind of annoying to use multiple kinds of glue on your Bible, but this Leathercraft cement is really nice. The one caution I have if you want to start using this is that it dries faster and it is harder to clean up. So it is still water-based. You still can clean it up with water, but it's more difficult to clean up. It takes a little bit more elbow grease. And if you've done a lot of Bibles, you'll know, like on this soft liner material, elbow grease is not really your friend, because you can start to work up the nice kind of semi-glossy finish on the leather. So just be careful. We're going to be really, really careful with this, and just use enough to do our fold over. So that's what I've been using. I've been using this on the edges and normal Lineco PVA glue on the actual corners. So I normally apply this from the bottle straight onto the cover. And you really do not need a lot. I'm telling you. If your Bibles are a pain to clean up, you are using too much glue. On a couple Bibles, I've nailed the amount of glue so perfectly that I have had no cleanup to do on the. I've had to do cleanup on the corner, but I didn't have to do any cleanup on the edges. And that's because I was really conservative with my glue. You do not need a lot of this, just enough to wet the entire area. Some rebinders, like Jeremiah Payne, he applies this glue with one of those needle bottles. That's how small of an amount of glue he uses. So you really don't need a lot here. So this is about the amount that you want. I maybe should have used a smaller amount. Whoops. I broke off my little piece of cotton here. But really don't need a lot. So this will be good for us. So this Leathercraft cement is also, like I said, it dries faster. So I'm already kind of on the clock here. It's already starting to get tacky. So the way I do this is with a ruler. And I kind of just push this up like so. So you can see here, it's already at a right angle. So it's already starting to adhere to the edge of the liner. And now once it's pressed with the ruler, I just kind of hold it here for a second to make sure that it's tacked down. And there we go. That's our first fold over. And sometimes it, comes back up a little bit, but just press it down. And you don't want to use too much pressure because you're going to squirt glue everywhere. A little bit of glue squirting out here, which I'll just get up, but that's a really nice, consistent fold over. Really happy with how that looks. So you don't want to do too much bending of this cover until that glue is dry. And I'll get my roller here and just do a light roll. Nothing too crazy. Yeah, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. All right, so we're going to go on to our next edge here. I always keep a dish of Q-tips on hand for little bits of glue cleanup I need to do here and there. But so this wrinkling right here is because I actually skived this too thin. And that's kind of one of the risks of hand skiving with a blade, is that you'll have sections that are too thick and sections that are too thin, and that will just show up on your fold over. So that won't be really noticeable at all once I stitch this cover. But yeah, looks pretty good. And we will go on to our side edges. So again, this Bible is going to be for sale once it's finished. So if you are liking what you are seeing, stay tuned. Stay tuned for a for sale post when this is done. Using a ruler to do this folding is something that I learned from Jeremiah from Frost Leather. He makes doing these foldovers, or when he, I think he has stopped rebinding, but when he would make these foldovers look so easy because he'd done so many of these. He would just, his skiving would, I think he mentioned like skiving a cover takes him 5 minutes, and he's just so good at skiving that doing foldovers just like takes no time at all. And I have gotten a lot better at hand skiving over the years, or over like the really year and a half that I've been doing this more seriously. And I will say the more that you do, the easier it will be. Because I used to hate doing the foldover section. And really was because I wasn't skiving enough. If your foldovers are annoying to get your leather to adhere, if glue is squirting everywhere, if your lines are uneven, like your foldover, like this line is not looking even, that is really mostly skiving. Mostly you're not skiving enough or consistently enough. And I'm not, that is skiving consistently is very, 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 very difficult. Very difficult. I was nervous recording that skiving video because I was like, what if I mess this up? But hopefully with my new skiving jig, my days of annoying skiving hopefully are over. So looks pretty good. It's kind of a weird. I missed a little spot in my cover was coming up a little bit, and I was like, what is going on? And it's because I had a little section that wasn't glued here, which is weird, but no problem. So that looks pretty good, crew. So I will let this dry briefly, and then we'll get into our corners. All right, so this cover is, or these edges are a little bit dry at this point. You don't need to wait until they're, 24-hour dry or anything to that level. But we're going to go ahead and do the corners here. So the corners, I've done a video on corners before, suggesting a number of maybe more advanced ways to do corners. And I've played around with those methods as I've rebound Bibles, and I've just gone back to like the basic, like start at one side and just like work your way all the way across. I've tried the start at the middle type thing, or like the halves method, which is divide the corner in half and then divide the two halves in half and then the two halves into quarters. And I'm most comfortable with the basic method of just starting at one end and working my way down. I've done it so many times at this point that I don't really get too trapped into the situation where you risk like putting pleats like up onto the edge too much. I've kind of started to avoid that. So we can go ahead and get started here without any more yapping. So for this, you want just enough glue to kind of lubricate the leather and to kind of wet it, but not enough where you're squirting out everywhere. And any of the space that is not attached to the liner, you want glue on. So even like up here and down here, you want glue all the way down and around. So, and the point where you know to start your pleat is right here. Right here, you can see that my radius, so this part right here is flat, and then my radius starts about right here. So that's where we want to start with our pleat. And I use the blunt side of my utility knife, and we'll just pull it aside to start my pleat here. See, I was talking too long and my glue started to dry, so. And I don't use I'm using Lineco PVA glue for this. I don't use the leather cement because I think the leather cement wouldn't work well for this because it would dry too fast. I mean, the hold would be good, but I think it would end up drying too fast, so. And the thing about pleating is that if it looks a little bit ugly on your first attempt, you can always kind of reshape it. And I'm using a bone folder to just make sure that that looks pretty good. And I'm using this little needle tool here to press these down a little bit more and to kind of make them look a little bit more orderly. Because just because they look kind of ugly once you press it doesn't mean that you can't make it look better kind of after the fact. And since this cover is stitched, that's going to be a nice corner once it's stitched. So, all right. And I didn't mention this before, but I kind of did it without mentioning it. I do normally start on the back, just because it's good to, I don't know. My first couple are kind of shoddy. My last two are tend to be my nicer looking ones. So that's why I like starting on the back. So I'll work my glue around here a little bit. So again, my radius starts about here. So I want to start pleating right where my radius starts. Oh yeah, that looks great. So if your corners are looking kind of wonky, there's a number of reasons why that might be. And that could be because your radius is off, as in you're using a radius that's either too big or too small. Your radius could be off, or your skiving could be inconsistent. So, like I was saying when we were doing the foldovers, if you have a thicker portion of skiving, like let's say right here right near the corner, and you try to fold that leather over, it's not going to fold as flexibly, and that's going to cause. And I'm just kind of pressing these down here a little bit. That would cause your corner to look weird. There we go. It's going to look great when I go to stitch it. My new skiving method really helps with these, with the foldovers and with the corners. It's really an answer to a need. So hopefully you can see well enough what I'm doing. I'm essentially like taking my knife at an angle and like pulling the inside bit of leather together. So that's how you enable your, that's how you are enabling the leather to wrap around. That's how you're enabling the leather to wrap around that right angle, that radius right angle. See, this bit right here is actually skived too thin. But it's going to be okay. That looks good. So I'll use my and some leathers are actually easier to do foldovers than others. I think Minerva Box cowhide is probably either Minerva Box cowhide or Missouri are the easiest leathers to do foldovers because they're more flexible. Horween can kind of be difficult. Amazonia can kind of be difficult. Goatskin is kind of a mixed bag. Really depends on the tannage. Some goatskins are more flexible. Badalassi Carlo Waxy. That leather is, you know, some rebinders consider Badalassi Carlo Waxy as like the gold standard of rebinding leathers. And you know me, I think that there are better ones probably, but anyway, Badalassi Carlo Waxy is actually kind of in some ways it's a hard leather to skive because there's so much oil and waxes that penetrate that leather, permeate that leather. Actually, don't have enough glue here. Because there's so many waxes that permeate that leather, my knife tends to kind of slip through the leather too much, so it's actually kind of a situation of like it's too easy to skive, and that's why it's difficult, if that makes sense. Dang, there's still not enough. Oh goodness, I messed up, guys. Too much. Gross. Okay. Anyway, some leathers are better than others. All right, doing this for reals this time. All right. That one looks pretty good. Oh, goodness. So when I go to do this part, I am kind of accentuating the pleats a little bit and straightening them, making them look more orderly, etc. Looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. Definitely not my best pleats, and one of the kind of weird things about this rebind is that this one might be the best one on this Bible. I started this Bible so long ago, and this is the skiving that I did, 2 months ago at this point. So the quality level is kind of, it's, I think with my new skiving method, I'm able to get better corners than this. For example, this is a Bible. This is the Bible that it's not complete. I need to put the end sheets on it. But this is the Bible that I am doing right now with my new skiving method. And I'll show you some of the corners here. Really nice and uniform. Just because I have been able to get really consistent skiving. So, and really consistent foldovers. So, yeah, I'm going to be sharing my Dremel jig here pretty soon. This Bible, like I said, doesn't have end sheets on it, but Really nice corners on this one. So I think really using a jig is going to be really good for me long term as I continue to offer like better and better quality. So the next thing we're going to do with this cover is mark our stitching holes, mark our stitch line, and then punch holes and stitch. So I'm not going to be doing like I'm not going to be recording myself stitching this because it's just kind of boring, but I'm going to be showing you my preferred threads, how I do stitching holes, and the method that I use to saddle stitch, which I've found is the fastest way. So thank you for watching. This is Ethan from XVD Bibles.